Hi, guys. My name is Kim,
And I'm Abby.
and this is
Katabasis.
Cultura. Abby, how are you this fine Sunday?
I'm good. How are you, Kim?
Girl, I'm fighting for my life. I had the stomach bug on Friday, and I feel so much better today, but I'm still just like hungover by the stomach bug.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't fully gotten back into my body. So I'm still like, blech. But I'm so excited for today. We did our damn thing when it came to doing research. Abby is going to be the um, historian, the historical historian
No.
today. 100%. I'm gonna
Very.
be bothering her with so many questions because this is her home. This is her space. And Abby, what are we talking about today?
A little bit about haunted New Orleans and just other horrible stuff that happened there. Yeah.
Hot in New Orleans and just all of the
Uh-huh.
yeah, oh yeah,
It's the
okay, all
truth.
right.
It's the
It
truth.
is the truth. It is the truth. It's the way that you said it, just like, okay. I agree because as I was doing research, it was like it was really, really interesting to see all of the like spooky, scary, haunted kind of spaces, but everything was so embedded in like a really inequitable history. Um and so I'm glad that you said something about that because I do agree. Like there is a lot of really ugliness and inequity that surrounds a lot of these different stories. Um, so did you wanna start?
Yeah. Let's see. Let's start out with Muriel's. It's a restaurant in New Orleans now. But it's a 200-year-old historic Creole restaurant that's one of the most it has one of the most, like, significant and haunted places in New Orleans. Patrons often tell of encounters with a shimmering entity floating around the property, that many people believe that the spirit is Pere Antoine Jordan, one of the property's first owners. But it all started in the early 1700s, a long time ago, when a French Canadian explorer by the name of Claude hang on. This is hard word. I've been
Yeah.
thinking about
No,
it.
some of these words yeah, some of these words because 'cause they're French, are a
Yeah.
little bit difficult to pronounce, so if we mess up, apologies.
It all started in the
Um,
early 1700s when a young French Canadian explorer by the name of Claude Trepagnier, I think. Not sure. Um, received a parcel of land for his expeditions, which he used to build a small cottage. According to some locals, the building was used to house slaves as they came off in the boats, and it is believed that many died in the home after taxing and brutal travels. In 1775, a wealthy baron, and I'm getting this from US Ghost Adventures. They did like a whole thing
mhm.
there. So
They
this is
do,
like
I
per
saw a
them.
whole bunch of stuff from them. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw a whole bunch of stuff from them.
yeah. Um, a wealthy baron known as John Baptiste acquired the property and replaced the humble cottage with a majestic home for his family. The new building was an exquisite grand structure that matched his lavish lifestyle as the royal treasurer of French Louisiana colonies. The man and his family needed quite the palace. But the family's fortunes didn't last long, and one of his descendants was forced to sell the home at an auction in 1776. The property was bought by Pere Philippe de Marigny and is used as one of his city homes. But it wasn't long before the misfortune struck again. In 1788, on Good Friday, the Great Fire of New Orleans broke out and engulfed the property. The city spent the next decade recovering and trying to heal, but nothing could absolve the darkness that tainted this property. Pere Jordan was part of the restoration process and built his dream home in the aftermath of the fire. His gambling addiction, however, would cost him his beloved quarters. One night, unable to resist the thrill of the cards and call it quits, he lost his precious home in a poker game. Distraught, he went upstairs and, trigger warning, killed himself. A final tragedy before the building would come home to Muriel's. The ghost of Pere Antoine is said to remain on the property, appearing as a shining light that bounces from room to room. The restaurant owners believe that he spends most of his time on the second floor, which is why they renamed a section of that floor the Seance Lounge. The Seance Lounge.
Mm. So,
In
like, can we
addition,
do seances in there?
no, I think it's just called that because they have, like, a table set up for him and, like, his little like, a glass of water and stuff and, like, his plate made and everything,
Oh,
but in there, it looks like a seance lounge, it's, like, red and stuff. It's,
so
like,
it's like a
pretty.
little altar
It's
for
spooky.
him.
Yeah. Um, in addition to the shape-shifting visions, the restaurant visitors also report seeing objects creepily move around the restaurant. It's hard to say, but it is likely Antoine is to blame. He was very possessive of his beloved home, and it is possible he still tries to be in charge by rearranging some things. And believe it or not, he is the only supernatural entity to reside on the premises. There's a ghost in the courtyard bar who likes to make a bit of a ruckus. He's known for throwing glasses from behind a bar as far as 12 feet away. People have been spooked by the sight of strange shadows throughout the restaurant, and some have heard peculiar knocks on the walls believed to be some kind of Morse code.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. But yeah, that's a restaurant that you can go to now. It's really pretty. I like it. We're gonna go. We have
So do they
reservations.
still yes, me too. So, I'm so excited to record, and can we take pictures and stuff there?
Yeah.
Side note.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful. So, are these, like, these things that are happening, like the knocking on the walls and all these things going on right now, or is that something that they noticed after building? Is it something that we can still see and hear
Yeah, I
as
think
we
it's
go
something that
now?
still goes on now, like, I think it's something that they do in, like, their little ghost tours, like, because there's so many different companies
Oh,
that do ghost
okay.
tours. I think they talk
Yeah.
about it, yeah, going on now, like, it happens now,
Okay,
and I
see,
think
that's
that's
so
why they
sick.
set yeah, I think that's why they sent him, like, a place to, like, appease him, like, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
I
to
think
just
he's
like,
still very
"Hey,
much
like"
active, yeah.
like, "Here's your food, here's your water, here's
Yeah.
a glass of whiskey, like, come
Mhm.
on, we gotta make some monies today, like, that's the only way we can keep this
Yeah.
going."
Yeah.
No, that's so sick. So, that's when we were doing, research and, like, looking into different historical spaces, it was so, so difficult, um, to kind of comb through fact and fiction,
Yeah.
um, because there was a lot of historical pieces, but there were so many individuals that were trying to debunk a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
And so the one that I'm gonna talk about is the Sultan's Palace. And this one was so weird to find information
Yeah.
on because like there's so many websites like, oh my god, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And then it was like, none of this happened. Nobody has any evidence on any of this, blah blah blah. Blah. And I'm just sitting here like, this is a real good story. So
Mhm. It's a money
we
maker for
start.
sure. Like,
It is a money maker.
at the end of the day, that's how they make their money in that town, so everything's
They
real,
did
everything's true. For
mhm.
the sake of
Yep,
this
they did
podcast,
exact
everything's true.
everything is true. I will believe it all.
Yeah,
Until you prove to me otherwise, I will
yeah.
believe every single thing. I don't care. I like to live my life in Delulu land. I don't care. So, we're starting in the 1800s, most specifically 1836 at 716 Dauphine Street. So this was Gardette Lepre's house. And before any of the things that occurred later on, this was his home. And he sold it in 1839 to John Baptiste Lepret for $20,000. Now, this is in 1839. So that goes to show how beautiful and how wanted this mansion was for it to be
Yeah.
sold for $20,000 in the 1800s. That is a lot of money. I don't
Mhm.
know how much money that is, but you Google it and you tell me, and I know it's a lot of money.
I'm sure it's a lot.
So Jean Baptiste, he was like this money maker. He had multiple homes. He and his family had a lot of vacation homes. They'll go bounce around, do their thing, la da 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 da. And they were able to afford this life of luxury until the Civil War. And so after the Civil War, Jean Baptiste was really struggling with money. Financially, they couldn't afford all the homes that they had. So the only option they had was to rent it out. And so someone ended up coming up to him. And now this is where lines started to cross, and I couldn't get direct information because on some instances they said that these individuals were from Turkey.
Uh-huh.
Others said that they were from different parts of the Middle East. They couldn't give me specific information on who these people were. But the only specific part of the story was that this was an individual who claimed that his brother was a sultan and that they wanted to rent this space out for them and their family. And they were and it pretty much was like, "Oh, however much you want, I'll do it." And so Jean-Baptiste, he's trying to make his money again, he's trying to take care of his family, he's like, "Let's fucking go. You take it, let's do it." And after this occurred, the sultanship came to drop all of the things off in the mansions. And allegedly, people stated that everything looked so high end. The furniture, the people, the sultans had their own soldiers, and they were all equipped with super nice clothing, brand new weaponry, jewels, furniture. Everything looked like it came from a lot of money. And a lot of people were really, really excited to have the Sultan and his family join in New Orleans, but they noticed that they were never invited in anything. So they would hear parties throughout the street. They would smell opium, and it also seems to be a little bit of like a home for pleasure.
Uh-huh.
But no one in New Orleans was ever invited in the actual mansion. They were never invited to any parties or anything like that. They would drop things off for them, but no one would ever come out later on in the day. They would see that there was gold that replaced the things that they got. So, like, they would pay for the stuff, but no one would ever see them. And then one day, and this is where it was like, oh, this is so dramatic. One day there was a massive storm where everyone stayed home. They couldn't afford to leave their house because it was this huge storm. And the next morning, everything was fine. And allegedly, an individual was going on a walk past the mansion, and saw blood pouring from the front door. And so this person ran to the police station. He was like, oh my goodness, blood everywhere. Come help me. So the police arrived, and when they opened the door, first they knocked, no one answered. When they opened the door, they saw multiple trigger warning. We're going to talk a little bit about gore and violence. So I would skip the next like 45 seconds. But when the police officers opened the door, there were bodies upon bodies all littering all over the mansion with limbs missing, all like seemed to be that they were sliced. And they couldn't find the Sultan anywhere, nor could they find the Sultan's brother until they went outside. And now this is a conflicting story. Some stories say that they saw a hand poking out of the dirt as if it was trying to scrape, like to trying to dig themselves out. And they came to the understanding that the Sultan was buried alive and killed. Others say they couldn't find the Sultan anywhere, and they said that he was missing, but there was a significant amount of blood and things like that. So it could be that like he was killed and taken away. Um, and the main suspect was his brother, the Sultan's brother, but they could never find him. Now, this is where it was like fact or fiction, what's going on? So as I kept doing more research, it was like, no, like this is totally real. This happened. But then there were other instances that they were like, well, there wasn't enough data to really measure the validity. There weren't enough newspaper articles. There wasn't anything. It was a lot of hearsay. It was a lot of people saying that these things were happening. But it's so interesting to me because even today, the Sultan's palace or the Sultan's mansion has reoccurring paranormal activity, which can lead us to think that something did happen. Whether it was to that extent or not, something happened. So in 1940s, it was rebuilt for the New Orleans Academy of Art, but because of World War II and its draft, it was closed down. And then in 1966, Frank DeMaco, um, built 6 different apartments that's still standing and still being used today. And so in 1966, he made this. And in 1979, his wife was living in the penthouse at the time, and as she was trying to sleep, this is one of the first paranormal activities that they noticed in the space. She was trying to sleep, but when she as she lifted her head, she saw a dark figure at the end of her bed that began floating towards her, and when she turned on the light, it was gone.
my
And
gosh.
after she communicated this, a lot of other people started opening up and talking about different paranormal stories or experiences that they've had in this location. And so a lot of people would complain about things going missing. They would also complain that they've seen a ghost of a Confederate soldier walking around the premises and in the hallways, which is really interesting because this wasn't really in connection to any like Confederate
Yeah.
wars or anything like that. But they like explained exactly what they looked like, and it was
Mm.
multiple individuals who saw this ghost. They also see a spirit of a woman walking around with long hair. Some people said that they were pushed down the stairs and their animals were pushed down the stairs. There was a lot of really weird animal behavior. Like some animals wouldn't want to go into certain spaces of the palace. Some animals would only go into like one room of the apartment and not the others. And in the middle of the night, they'll hear a lot of screams as if people were still being murdered. So, like, I don't know if it is because, like, if you think about it, like, all these paranormal experiences, I mean, New Orleans in and of itself is an extremely paranormal space. So it
Yeah.
could be that these are ghosts and spirits and entities from all other different experiences that has found a home there.
Mhm.
Or it could be the people who were murdered in this massacre. And because it was such a big massacre, they didn't want to have it all over history. So then they didn't talk about it. But then it's
I'm
like,
sure
where
it's
did
a
this
little bit of
story
both.
come from? I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit of both. And so it was so cool to, like, read about it because it's like, "No, no, 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 it's either it's not real or it's real." But I feel like there's truth to both spaces. I just wanna know what happened to the Sultan's brother
Yeah.
because they still to this day have no information on him.
That's
And I
crazy.
thought that that was literally insane. But yeah, that is the Sultan's Palace. It is still an apartment complex, but you can still see it in New Orleans. I believe the outside is still kind of looking the same as it was before, except kind of renovated. But
Mhm.
inside, they changed it to look like the complexes, and it's a total of 6 of them.
Dang. I wanna look
Mhm.
at them. That's crazy.
Mhm.
I wanna talk about Delphine Lalaurie, and she was a horrible person, just off the top. Like, I would
Yeah, she
skip this
was.
whole entire story because, eh, I will say there's, like, slavery and, like, extreme torture. Like, I don't go into detail, but she
Yeah.
was horrible. So, she was a wealthy New Orleans socialite and a notorious enslaver. In 1832, Lalaurie moved into a neoclassical mansion at the intersection of today's Royal and Governor Nichols Streets with her third husband, Dr. Leonard Louis Nicholas Lalaurie. Lalaurie hosted many lavish parties there. However, through the years, information surfaced about her gross mistreatment of enslaved people. I mean, any if there's enslaved people involved, any of it's mistreatment, but okay. Um, According to historian Carolyn Long, Lalaurie was first investigated in 1828 for cruelty towards enslaved people. Though court records related to this investigation have not been found, there is documentation that Lalaurie paid for legal services and sold a number of enslaved people following the investigation. On April 10th, 1834, a fire broke out in the Lalaurie mansion. A group of onlookers gathered outside of the home as it was burned. According to the New Orleans Bee, the city's French language newspaper, firefighters discovered 7 slaves, more or less quoted, horribly mutilated, locked inside the building as they attempted to control the flames. The Bee went on to condemn the quote, bar- barbarous and fiendish atrocities committed by the woman Lalaurie upon the persons of her slaves, end quote. The firefighters brought these enslaved people to the Cabildo. I'm not sure what that is. I'm gonna look that up one second. And apparently the Cabildo is um like it's now a Louisiana State Museum. It's, like, really old, it's
Mm.
pretty. It looks like it belongs in Paris or something. But it so neighbors ransacked the mansion and destroyed what was left of the burned mansion. The Lalauries fled to Lake Pontchartrain and ultimately relocated to Paris. Many tourists visit the Lalaurie mansion because it is supposedly, like, haunted. I mean, I'm sure a lot of bad shit went on there. But
I
I just
can't I
think
can't imagine that it's not.
yeah, I just think she's, like, a horrible person and, like, energy lingers. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I think. I don't think she's
And it's
necessarily
also the
haunting it. I just think it's gross.
I know. I think there has to be a level of negativity in that
Yeah.
space because of all of the souls that were tortured.
Mm,
All of them like, all of the individuals that were tortured and mutilated and all those different things. I feel like, of course, it's going to carry so much pain,
yeah.
and I hope she's sitting in that pain.
Mhm. It's awful. But yeah, that's Lowry.
And so, is there still a museum for of her home, right?
It's still standing. I don't think you can go in though.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think you can
I
go
don't
there.
remember I don't remember if it was, like, an open,
Because
like,
I think Nick
historical.
Cage if I'm not mistaken, I think Nick Cage owned it. Let me make sure. Yeah, Nicolas Cage briefly owned the Lowry Mansion in New Orleans, purchasing it in 2007 for about $3.4 million.
Why?
But it went into foreclosure 2 years later, and it says Cage later described it as one of his bad investments and rented a
I would assume
nearby
so.
property after the foreclosure. Yeah. But it was listed for sale in 2024, and if I'm, like, again, not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was somebody big who just bought it. Hang on, let's see. Yeah, it's like a ghost company, I guess, that bought it. I
Yeah.
don't know why I thought it was somebody that was famous though. But they bought it for 10,000,000.
Yeah,
$10,000,000.
$10,000,000 in a day, that he
Yeah.
bought it in a day, and so it
No.
looks like. And so the goal, I assume, yep. So the goal is to have it become a historical site, like a museum, a paranormal museum, which I think is just absolutely disgusting. I think that, like, I feel like there needs to be a level of cleansing and release for all of
Mhm.
those souls that are trapped in there.
They're
Like,
making
no, it
too
shouldn't be
much
open.
money off of it.
Yeah, but there should not be any kind of tours or like, that was a space of so much pain and
Yeah,
misery for, and I could be wrong, because the way in which I view it as an outsider is just the
I
containment of
agree.
so much pain, and
Yeah.
so I would love to hear other people's opinion on it of, like, do you feel like this is something that should be invested into to create a historical space, to
No.
create a museum, or is this something that, like, it needs to be closed and
I think
cleansed
it needs to
and
be closed and
released?
cleansed, and it needs to have a plaque outside. That's it. Don't
It needs
nobody
to
need to
have a
go up in
plaque and
there.
that's it. No,
Yeah.
and that it could be considered a like, people need to remember the
Yeah.
atrocities that occurred, but it should not be used as a way to
Make money.
increase more. Yeah, like, that's fucked. Like, that's fucked.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next place that I wanted to focus on was St. Louis Cathedral. So this one had a lot more historical context, that I thought was extremely interesting.
Mhm.
Um, and the biggest thing that I found interesting was this is the oldest continually operating cathedral in America. So
Yeah.
that in and of itself is an incredible feat, especially because of all of the fires and hurricanes and just, like, natural
Mhm.
disasters that occur in New Orleans. For this to still be operating every single year is amazing. So the St. Louis Cathedral was built in 1718, and it was dedicated to King Louis IX, and it's King Louis of France. And side note, King Louis is the first ever, and I believe the only king that was ever given sainthood. So now
Mm.
he's known as Saint Louis. Um, so the first natural disaster, or disaster that occurred was in 1788, the Great Fire of New Orleans. It burned it down, and then they were rebuilt in 1794. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the specific monks or specific religious individuals who haunt the cathedral. And so
Mhm.
the first one is Perry Antoine, and he was considered just like an incredible individual because a lot of his time and energy was spent supporting low income families and low income communities. Most specifically, he baptized and worked with Marie Laveau to help free slaves and poor class. And so he was an individual that was really embedded in the community. Some people didn't like him because of the fact that he was trying to support free slaves and trying to help them gain their freedom. But a
Mhm.
large part of the community really found a lot of safety in the church because of him. Um, and then the next individual was Perry Dogbert, and he was originally from Quebec, but he moved to New Orleans to the cathedral and became the archdiocese in 1745. And similar to Antoine, he was also supporting those in need. He also ran a charity hospital for 8 years. So these are two individuals that really took their role in the church seriously and took a lot of time into trying to support the community. Now, why did they become ghosts? How did they become ghosts? What the fuck? This one was really, really cool because there were so many like stories that were all so similar. And it was a lot of music. So both Perry Antoine and Perry Dogbert would walk around the balcony and the altar and hum hymns, um, and people would see them. People would see them walk around the altars, walk around the balcony, and then in midnight mass, they would see Perry Antoine holding a candle and humming church hymns.
Mhm.
Specifically in 1924, someone notified the archdiocese at that time and let them know that they just walked past Perry Antoine. Um, and so Perry Dagobert, he was also seen in the cathedral. He would sing hymns and do all these different things, but there was a little bit of a like they were a bit confused as to why they would always see Perry Antoine, but they found for Perry Dogbert, it was really, really cool to see him. The way that they used the language was like he was very much a hero in New Orleans during this time period. So when Spain conquered New Orleans, there were a group of French Creoles who attempted to rebel. And so
Mhm.
Spain sent out Alejandro Bloody O'Reilly. And they sent him out to hunt down these rebels and kill them. So what he did, Alejandro collected all 5 of them, surrounded them, and shot them. And he forced all the other individuals to toss them to the side, and he was like, "They are not to be buried. They are not going to receive a proper burial." And so Pierre Dogbert or Perry Dogbert, I don't know if it's Pierre or Perry Dogbert, snuck, got all of the bodies, and gave them a proper burial without getting caught. So this man put his life on the line in order to ensure that these
Okay.
individuals were given a proper burial, given their rights, and that they were laid to rest. Um, and so now that when people see him, they always try to provide offerings or prayers and things like that because they consider him to be a savior of a lot of these individual souls. And then there was like a little piece about a pirate that they would see in the alleyway by the cathedral. And they were like, "Yo,
Mhm.
I don't know who this man is, but we always see this damn pirate ghost just floating around by the cathedral. And they don't know
That's
if it's
funny.
Jean Lafitte or Reginald Hicks." And they would hear him singing and humming and walking around, but literally no clue where this pirate came from and what he's
That's
hanging
funny.
out and doing in the church. So these
I'll
were
talk
really,
about
really
him next
cool.
then.
Do you really? Okay, okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, go ahead. Tell me who this man is, please, because I have no clue.
Well, Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, it's like a bar, and I love it. It's a good bar. They have this thing called the purple drink, and it's like a purple slushy, and it's like I don't know, like, it's good. It really is good. I don't like grape flavor stuff, but it's good. It's like a daiquiri kinda. But anyway, So it was built in 1722, and it's one of the oldest structures in New Orleans and possibly the oldest, like, running bar in America. That's kinda crazy and old.
That's
And,
cool.
like we talked about, all the storms that's done came through New Orleans, like, it's it's crazy. The French Quarter, like, it has something going on, like, it's definitely in a bowl, like people says it
Energetically,
is,
yeah,
and energetically, like, all these old ass buildings that ain't just been completely ravaged, like, what?
yeah.
That's crazy to me.
There is so much energy in that space that, like, I feel like anything and it would they would always be standing.
Yeah, so crazy. But so it's like former pirate headquarters, basically. I'll get to that. I'll explain it. It's like where John Lafitte planned his smuggling operations, and he's like the pirate that like is of New Orleans, basically. And it remains haunted by the legendary John Lafitte and his ghostly crew. Per Ghost City tours of New Orleans. On Bourbon Street, it sits on a quiet and an unassuming building. Like, literally, the building looks, like, so old, it looks like it could just fall over any second. And the inside looks the exact same. It's not only one of the oldest buildings in the French Quarter, it's also one of the most haunted. Lafitte's blacksmith shop has a long haunted history for years. There have been records, of ghosts, even what is possibly the ghost of John Lafitte haunting the building, which is now a bar. Lafitte's blacksmith shop gets the name from John Lafitte, who was a pirate who called New Orleans home in the early 1800s. A pirate and privateer were essentially the same thing. A pirate worked for themselves while a privateer worked for the government. They both looted and robbed and killed, literally.
Like,
One was just
one is legal, one isn't.
Yeah, one was just socially acceptable, the other was
And
just
the other
not.
one wasn't.
Yeah.
Yep,
Lafitte
because it
is
couldn't be
believed
taxed.
Yeah, Lafitte is believed to have been born either in France or the French colony of Saint Domingue, I think that's how you say it. By 1805, he operated a warehouse in New Orleans to help disperse the goods smuggled by his brother Pere Lafitte. After the United States government passed the Embargo Act of 1807, the Lafittes moved their operations to an island in Barataria Bay, Louisiana. By 1810, their new port was very successful. The Lafitte's pursued a successful smuggling operation and also started to engage in piracy. The Lafitte became a local legend during the War of 1812 when he helped Andrew Jackson defend the city of New Orleans from capture at the hands of the British. Today, you will see many landmarks and buildings with his name in New Orleans. The ghost of John Lafitte has never interacted with anyone. He has never said a word to anyone. He simply stands in a dark corner staring at people until he is noticed, at which time his ghost disappears into the shadows. Now, this hasn't happened just or two times. It seems to be a fairly common occurrence here at the blacksmith shop. He is always seen inside, most of the time near the fireplace that is inside. In later parts of the 19th century, the upstairs area was supposedly rented out to a mysterious woman who, trigger warning, ended up committing suicide there. Bargoers who have encountered her in the years since reported her to be a very talkative soul. On at least several occasions, late at night, she would cozy up next to an unsuspecting victim and whisper into their ear. The blacksmith shop is also home to a set of disembodied, quote, piercing red eyes that stare out from beyond unlit corners of the first floor room. Yeah. You might,
I'm okay.
yeah, you might notice the menacing manifestation out of the corner of your vision. When you turn to meet them, they lock into your soul and then slowly fade away.
So we will not be turning to meet anyone. Okay, okay. We will be
Yeah, it's
staying forward.
creepy.
If I see something in my peripheral, I don't see anything in my peripheral.
Well, it's scary.
Uh, See, I love how I was like, "I have no clue who this man is," and it's like, "Oh, this man got a whole bar for himself. Let me calm down.
Yeah.
Humble yourself." And now we're gonna go to this bar, and now I'm gonna be stared at. Thank
He's
you.
my favorite.
I did not mean it, okay? I did not mean it. Jeez. So,
That's so funny.
I am going to talk about an incredible woman, a powerful woman, a beautiful woman, Marie Laveau. I am so excited. The only thing I've ever known about Marie Laveau is from, American Horror Story,
Mhm.
and it was Angela Bassett, and I both feared and
She
was
did really
obsessed.
good at playing her, I think.
I am so excited. So I don't know. I did not starting this off. I did not know a lot about Marie Laveau. I only knew what was in that show and like things that you would hear like whispers around. Because again, a lot of the stories, especially when we were like doing research, it's very clear that a lot of the stories were very much like oral history. It was a
Yeah.
lot of stories that were passed down from generation to generation. So to be able to collect actual information was a little difficult. But I also think that that holds so much honor and respect for the history of New Orleans because it was in such a traditional way. Like it was like it was almost like you had to have been there to know it. And so
Yeah.
now the generations are carrying these stories and this history. And so I think that that's such a
Mhm.
beautiful thing. So from what I have regarding Marie Laveau, it's very much on the basis of information that is accessible, as well as some stories that were heard, like were word of mouth. And so if there's any more, please check in with us. Tell us, like we want to learn. And
Yeah.
so if I'm missing anything or if there's any information that's incorrect, humble me and tell me and teach me. So Marie Laveau, they don't have her specific date of birth, but they estimate it to 1794 to 1801. And she from some of the stuff, it shows that she was a free slave. She was African American, Native American, and French. And her first husband was Jacques Paris in 1819 is when they got married and they had two children. And then her second partner was Christophe Dominic, and they had 15 children. 7 of them were like, lived long enough for baptism, and then 2 of them lived long enough for into adulthood, and their both name were Marie.
What? I did
Um,
not know that
yeah,
she had that many.
she had a lot of children, but
What?
unfortunately, not all of them were
Oh
survived.
god.
Um And so when I looked into her career, she started off as a hairdresser, and that's where she started to have a lot more of her clientele. So her clientele would come in seeking to get their hair done, and as they would start to talk and things like that, they would ask for more spiritual guidance.
Right.
And from what I collected, it seemed like she was a voodoo practitioner. And so she helped and supported a lot of individuals in her community with her spiritual practices. And then as this one was really cool, and I was like, "You're a fucking queen for this." So, as she started to get more popular and supporting more people, politicians and individuals of, like, higher class would attempt to ask for her help. Now, what she would do is have it as a mixture of voodoo and Catholicism to make it more easily digestible for these people. Because she was baptized, she did work with the church. And so a lot of the stories surrounding the support with politicians was that she was like, "Well, I do also work with the church and it's Catholic as well." And so it would be easier for them to be able to ask for her help and
Mhm.
pay for her services. So one of the stories, and I thought it was so cool, was the pepper story, the hot pepper story. And this one, again, word of mouth. There was a lot of different pieces and a lot of different ways the story was communicated, but generally, I'm gonna make it as general as possible. She was helping a politician or she was helping a client, free the individual that was going to go to jail that the court was surrounding. And so what she did was she took peppers, put it underneath the judge's seat, and she ended up, like, eating peppers or putting peppers in her mouth, and whatever practice or working she was doing allowed for the court case to be dismissed. And so that was a big story about her, and that also kind of enhanced her popularity in New Orleans of someone who is this very powerful practitioner. She also sold like gree-grees, other forms of protection. So I don't really know exactly what a gree-gree is. When I researched it, it is a kind of a protection satchel or a protection pouch, most
Mhm.
specifically in closed practice. So it's not something that you would just research and do yourself. Don't research shit and do it yourself. You
Mhm.
need to be initiated. Okay. Um, so like I said before, she was working in churches. So, Perry Antoine was the individual who baptized her. She would work hand in hand with him to really help lower income communities, support the community in New Orleans, as well as help free slaves. And so she was someone who was so honored and venerated in these spaces because she would use her time, her energy, and her ability and capacity to support others in these spaces. And so a lot of people held so much love and respect for her. And so there was a big thing, and this was a big story after she passed away. And this was the idea of seeing her ghost walking around New Orleans. Most specifically, it would be her dressed in white, and so a lot of people would start to have these stories of seeing her walking the streets of the French Quarter, and if people would call her name, which was Marie, she would turn around and she would stop and smile and all of these different things. And so people are not sure if it's her ghost, but there was a lot of like direction on it being her daughter because
Mhm.
she had a lot of portraits made for her, but there was this idea of like it would usually be her daughter's faces or her face with some type of like something missing or something different because she never wanted to be in a picture and she never wanted to be painted. She never wanted to have her face etched into anything. Um, and so people are like, maybe it's a ghost, maybe it's her daughter. Because no one truly had the actual image of what Marie Laveau looks like. Um, and then now this is a big thing that I read, and it was all about her grave. And so after she passed, she has a grave in the First Cemetery in New Orleans. And unfortunately, people would I don't know if the term would be desecrate because I don't think they were doing it in the intention of desecrating her grave. Um, but her grave has consistently been worn down and all of these things because of a lot of the workings and rituals that people would do. And they would it's very difficult because like
Or
I'm not
even
a
just tourists that
practitioner.
would go, like, leaning
Yeah.
up against it, taking pictures and stuff, like, and chips off
Yeah.
paint over top. I think the people who, like, would do stuff, like, at her grave, like, most of them would be respectful, but, like, you got tourists that are coming out of town and that are, like, using her as, like, a spectacle and everything, and,
Yes.
like,
And so
just etching away at, like, her tomb and stuff.
at
It's
her
just a
grave and
lot.
her tomb. There were also people who would do rituals, and they would call it, it was like, a luck ritual or Marie's luck or something like that. I have
Mhm.
to find the specific name of it, and they would do specific rituals for her to, um have their wishes come true, for her to be a wish fulfillment. And
Mhm.
so because of this, there it's very, very discouraged to touch her tombstone and to leave things. Some people leave flowers and like different offerings for her, which is so beautiful. But I agree, Abby. Been a lot of tourists and individuals who don't really know Marie Laveau, know of her, and kind of just like touch her tombstone or write things on her tombstone and like take things out, put things in,
Mm.
which is causing a lot of damage to her grave.
I've never
And so
went to go looking, like, I've never even I don't even think not, like, hating on anybody who
yeah.
has done, like, a cemetery tour or anything, but I just never, like I've never seen it because 'cause I've never sought to see it, I guess, because I feel like it is just disrespectful. I feel like it's
Yeah, and
been
also
seen by too many people, like, that's just too much. Mm-mm.
I agree, and I also feel like of, like I'm not a voodoo practitioner, I'm not like
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
not for I can honor her in the ways of talking about her in a historical sense, but I feel like
Mhm.
that should be given to the individuals who have worked with her, who are within her ancestry, who are connected to her
Mhm.
spiritually, not like fucking tourists who are just coming in to take a picture and delete it in, like, 6 months,
Yeah.
and put, like, a little background noise music on it or something like that. Um, so no, so that is Marie Laveau, and it was really, really cool. to research about her, because she's really, and she's still to this day someone who is so venerated in New Orleans.
Okay, another haunted place in New Orleans, it's a hotel, and it's the Andrew Jackson Hotel. The Andrew Jackson Hotel is the site of the U.S. federal courthouse made famous for fining the General Andrew Jackson for contempt of court in 1815. Jackson had arrived in New Orleans in December 1814 to bolster the city's defenses against possible British invasion. He declared martial law against the British as a military defense. Regardless of a great victory against the British at the Battle of New Orleans the following January, Jackson refused to lift the order months afterward. When a senator expressed his unease about the order, Jackson had him arrested. When a judge ruled that the senator be released, Jackson ordered that the judge to be held in jail. When Jackson eventually lifted the martial law, the judge returned and charged Jackson with contempt of court to the tune of $1,000, which Jackson paid. And so that's where that went down at. So the Andrew Jackson Hotel is known as one of the most haunted hotels in New Orleans. The property saw its share of misfortunes. Originally home to a boarding school and orphanage for boys who lost their parents to the yellow fever epidemic, the site housed a grave tragedy in 1774. Fires that consumed many of the buildings in the French Quarter burned down the orphanage with 5 young boys inside. Today, many say the building is haunted with reports of the ghost of young Armand waking up guests with laughter or pushing them out of bed. Others report seeing the caretaker of the orphan boys fluffing pillows and cleaning up the rooms. Others claim that Andrew Jackson roams the hallways. People have especially talked about room 208 being haunted by Armand, the young boy. There's also been sights of Civil War soldiers. So it's like just fucking chock full of all
Full of
different
a whole
types.
bunch.
Yeah. And so Andrew Jackson Hotel, like you should look up a picture of it. It's so beautiful. It's on Royal Street. I've never got the chance to stay there because it's fucking expensive out that ass. But I'm telling you, their
Mhm.
balconies are like some of the best in New Orleans. Like if somebody, and I think it's just like such a boutique hotel. Like
Yeah.
the inside
Like,
of it is
is
just
it like a tourist
curated.
attraction hotel? Or is it,
I
like,
would
just,
think.
like, bougie? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, my mom, like, when she goes, like, for Mardi Gras and stuff, she likes staying at the Bourbon Orleans Hotel, like, on Bourbon Street, because she loves being on Bourbon Street. But that is haunted too, and that is more so like, like, I guess, like a Four Seasons, like, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
plain, doesn't really have much. It does have character because it's old, but, like, it doesn't have as much as, like, the Andrew Jackson, like, it
Yeah.
has like, it's the Andrew Jackson looks like a mansion, because I mean, that's what it once was, like, I'm sure, like, it's
Yeah.
like 1 billion, but, like, as opposed to, like, a hotel with, like, 100 something rooms, it has, like, I don't even know how many, maybe, like, 6 or 8, something like that, but it's
Yeah.
just really cute. It's so cute.
That's so cool.
I love staying on Grove Street. That's, like, the best place to stay in my opinion. It's just pretty. Yeah.
Okay, do you have anything else about the Andrew Jackson Hotel?
No, that was it.
Okay. Okay, so we are ending our historical walk with the Casket Girls, the Vampires of New Orleans. Okay,
Mhm.
this had me in a fucking chokehold. I left the best for last because it had me in a fucking chokehold. Just the, like, audacity of men. Imma sit up for this. I'm sitting up for this. The audacity of men is all that this historical kind of piece girl, the audacity of men. So, the Casket Girls. This all started in 1663 in New France. And so during this time period, there was a colony within New France, and it was mostly men because it was mostly like individuals trying to settle into colonies and all these different things. And
Mhm.
what is it that they wanted? Women. They considered it wives. They wanted wives, but what they wanted was women.
Yeah.
And so the intendant Jean Talon sent a message to King Louis XIV, and he was seeking wives. So King Louis was like, I got you, buddy. I know just what to do. And he sent a group of girls, not women,
Mhm.
girls from 12 to 25 with multiple letters of purity from different priests, right? And so he sent a total of 800 girls. Now, of these 800 girls, not all of them made it. Like half of them actually made it. Some of them were killed during the transition. Some of them stayed because they were afraid. Some of them stopped, turned
Mhm.
around. And so this is where things got interesting. And when I say interesting, it got tricky because again, the audacity of men. Um they weren't actually considered pure in the eyes of the church. These girls were actually considered sinful and were seeking absolution. And now, when I say that, they were trying to say that they were like sex workers and
Mhm.
individuals who were full of sin, who faced adultery and all these different things. Out of all 800 girls, there was only one who was actually charged for prostitution. The rest were just girls. So now this group of girls, again, girls, not women, were sent over. And then everyone was happy, la di da di da. Not everyone, the men. In 1704, second colony was asking for wives. And this was the French colony Biloxi, Biloxi, Biloxis, I think, or Biloy.
Mhm.
French colony Biloy, I'll call her. And this was interesting because this one, when they sought out girls, they wanted there to be proof of purity. And so they sent out a group of girls 14 to 19 years old to become
Mhm.
wives. And they were sent for marriage and to teach propriety to the other indigenous young women that were already in this colony. And so again, these group of girls, some of them did not want to go, obviously for obvious reasons,
Yeah.
and they went to this colony. They ended up getting married, teaching and forcing assimilation. Like the story, it's the same story, different title
Mhm.
of colonization. And now the third group, New Orleans 1721. Um, this one was very interesting. So in New Orleans, they sought out wives again. And so they sent a message to France, I believe, to seek out more wives. And they were like, I got you, New Orleans. I'm going to get you the best group of girls I have. They sent 80 women, and these were women that lived in correctional facilities. And they were like, these are the purest women we have. And so it's like, again, if we think about this time period, these women are just women that were
Yeah.
engaged in like sexual practices, engaged in children before wedlock and all of these different things. Like these were women who were detained for one reason or another, but
Mhm.
they didn't follow the propriety that this society was seeking. And so with these group of women going into New Orleans, a lot of different brothels and things like that began to open up. A lot of different spaces of sin and all that bullshit started in New Orleans. So then in 1728, a message went back to the king and they were like, "Hey, I see you tried, but can we try again? And this time we make sure we do it right." And so now this is where the casket girls come in. And it was filet à la cassette, which is women with suitcases. And they arrived in New Orleans specifically for marriage. So similar to the previous ones where they had to prove their purity and all of these different things. These were young girls and they came from orphanages. Um and so this idea, I was trying to find like why they were called casket girls. So cassette is suitcase or chest. And because of the lack of kind of like written word and written documentation, they switched the word cassette to casket, which is also suitcase, to casket, which is a casket that you use for
Mhm.
when you for funerals. And so it was a slip of the tongue and a change in how the word sounded that changed this whole idea of it being filet à la cassette, which is women with suitcases, to casket girls. And when these young girls came in, when these orphans came in, they were very pale. And they were so pale that when they would touch sunlight, they would become red and their skin would blister and all these different things. So automatically, the people of New Orleans are like, oh, snap, we got ourselves a witch. Then they were coming in with these very, very large chests, very, very large suitcases. And as they would bring them in, they would only bring them up to the third floor of the Ursuline orphanage. Now, this is when we get into the Ursuline sisters. Like, this is it's the coolest thing. So, the Ursuline sisters or the Ursuline orphanage was where nuns tended to the young girls that were brought in for marriage to to teach them and provide for them until they are married off. And
Mhm.
so there is a lot of historical significance of this orphanage, but there's a lot of fear and resistance that came with it because of the thought that these girls were vampires. And so there are stories of the third floor being closed off, windows boarded, all of these different things. And they said that they were boarded by holy nails from the Roman church because there was something sinister that was being stored there. And what was being stored there was the girls' suitcases. And so, again, it reiterated this idea of the young girls being vampires because it's like, not only are you pale as fuck, but you're sickly as fuck, and also, you can't be out in the sun. And also, why do you have these huge chests that are now called caskets? And also, why are these chests locked away? Why are these windows boarded up? Why aren't you going outside? And it reiterated this idea of these young girls not being girls, but being vampires that were traveling and pretty much immigrating or migrating towards all of these different colonies to find a new food source. A lot of people are debunking this story, and they're kind of like, well, they board up the wall or they board up the windows and stuff because New Orleans is a space where there's hurricanes and things of that nature for like for weather and all these different things. The young girls were locked away in a ship for months at a time. Like, of course their skin is going to be pale, of course they're going to be sickly, and also they're moving away forever. Maybe that's why they have a chest that's so big. But I question all of that. I believe, as a person who does not live in New Orleans, has no historical connection to New Orleans, and has no idea what she is talking about, I believe in my heart of hearts that vampires of New Orleans are real. And my evidence is Abby.
Oh my god. I can't stand you.
Is she a
Oh,
siren? Is she a vampire? I have no clue. You see how
she's
she didn't
pale.
respond?
She's pale.
Mm. Mhm. Pale and sickly. Pale and sickly. All right, guys. Let's do some Reddit stories. Abby, do you want to start your Reddit story off?
Yeah, so first I have somebody whose account is deleted, but they posted this 3 years ago and it's called New Orleans Terror. And it says this story may be hard to believe, especially since I don't have the story at hand, but I promise you I'm telling the truth. When I was a kid, I went on a church service to New Orleans. Our aim was to help clean up remaining damages from when Katrina hit. About midway into the trip, we helped remove brush and debris from some plot of land so a playground could be built. We were all ecstatic because the day was incredibly productive and we really believed that the spiritual forces of good slash godliness were at work through us. Period. But that is good that they are doing that. The forces of good, yes. Slash godliness, yes. Amen, brother. That night we have we visited Bourbon Street to have dinner, listen to some live music, and celebrate the work that had been done. At some point, one of the church leaders was taking pictures and pointed her camera to the sky facing a distant casino. The sky was clear, no clouds. She snapped a photo, and when the screen displayed her photo, there was a silver looking face smiling heinously while clasping his hands slash protecting the casino. His face seemed metallic with many wrinkles, if you can imagine the Heath Ledger Joker but without eyes. A huge mouth, no teeth, and many wrinkles, like fabric being pulled in multiple directions. That's what it looked like. He had wet-looking orange hair that dragged about midway down his face. Its nose was half missing. The entire group went hysterical when they all looked at the photo, and the rest of the night we were disturbed. The joy we had felt all day instantly went away. Few of us slept. I had a variety of hallucinations in the dark of demons falling into me. I didn't get any sleep. There were a few girls in the room next to me who I could hear crying in terror about what had taken place. I say this all to illustrate how the incident felt like a direct, successful attempt to hijack our spirits of positive energy. One person in the group tried to come up with multiple natural explanations for the incident, but the leader who took the photo always had new details to explain how there wasn't a natural explanation for what had happened. The incident alone has been enough to keep my agnostic ass alert and aware of all possibilities. And somebody commented up under that 3 years ago and said, "I had a similar experience in New Orleans." So 2 stories in one. A twofer. You
A
getting a twofer.
twofer. You're
Yeah.
getting a twofer.
I had a similar experience in New Orleans a few years ago. I took a pic with my digital camera of the night sky near Bourbon Street, and the smoky, silvery image showed up in the picture. I remember it had sharp, pointy claws like reaching out at me with long, sharp teeth, smiling, and evil-looking eyes. I showed it to my friend thinking I was going crazy. As well saw this freaking creepy creature. We were freaked out. The next day, I was having a conversation with an employee at one of the occult shops about the picture I pulled a pic about the pic. I pulled out my camera to show her the creature, and it wasn't in the picture anymore. Still confused about that. Also, my friend got possessed by some dark entity after we went into Marie Laveau shop
Hold
on
on.
Bourbon Street. Bitch, shut the fuck up.
Hold
Shut
on.
up right now.
Shut
And
the
I'm gonna tell
fuck
you
up.
that.
Not
I don't care
only
if you
but
even
not only
had
the
your
side note,
username
be
on
like,
there.
also, shut the fuck up. It was the yeah, all this happened. Also, side note, my friend got a little possessed. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. She
Okay.
said
Okay.
she was not the same for a couple of days. She was moody and snappy like a walking zombie. She would wake up in the middle of the night in the hotel room pacing around, and I would wake up with her sitting on the edge of her bed staring at the wall. Super creepy. Hang on. Super creepy. Also, her eyes seemed to become two different colors. One her normal light blue, and the other like her pupil had enlarged, and the blue was much darker. That's all. Oh
Interesting.
my god.
Could it be not that it was Marie
Yeah.
Laveau's? Could it have been the demon orb?
Yeah,
Could it have
possibly.
been, I don't know. I don't know. What do I know?
Hmm.
Ugh. Okay, so I have a couple. I'm gonna choose this one because this one actually scared me. So this one is My New Orleans Experience by Shishaya, and this was 9 years ago. Okay, so here's my story. About 2 years ago, I took my now ex girlfriend to New Orleans for her 21st birthday. Pretty awesome birthday gift, if you ask me. She was always into creepy stuff, and New Orleans, being the most haunted city in the United States, was right up her alley. I was 24 at the time, and this was my first relatively exotic vacation I've ever been on without my family, unless you count Oregon. This being my first full vacation, it cost a hell of a lot of money, so I opted out of a hotel and found a really cool hostel for us to stay at since I had planned out a week-long stay for us. It was called the St. Vincent Guest House. After doing some research, I decided this would be the best place for us to stay because they offered private rooms with queen size beds on top of the fact it was an old building and probably had some rich history behind it. We get to town on Sunday, move our stuff into the room, which was actually in a more decent condition than I first thought it would be, and immediately get to Bourbon Street to get ourselves some booze. The week goes on, and we're getting very accustomed to the neighborhood, restaurants, and especially the workers at our hostel. We soon learned that our hostel, which was three double vaulted stories tall, so essentially six, used to be an orphanage that was built in 1861, and most of the orphans died of yellow fever. Chilling in and of itself. The week continues, and we're having a blast, out enjoying food, culture, and the alcohol all day, and even more alcohol at night. Since we were such a short walk from Bourbon Street, we tended to walk from St. Vincent and back. Everything was going great until Wednesday morning. We wake up around noon and I roll in bed for about a minute next to her. When I finally sit up, I notice one of the chairs belonging to our bedroom's table was turned towards my side of the bed. It was sitting about 1 foot away from me, pointed in my direction, and the seat was wet. I've heard about paranormal activity involving residual pools of water as phenomena, but I've never experienced it personally. My ex was nearly not as phased as I was. I searched the ceiling for leaks and looked at the gallon of water we'd brought ourselves. There was no culprit. I'm still a bit of a skeptic when it comes to a lot of things like this, but for Christ's sake, if it's all really just some ghost child was sitting next to me, literally hovering over me while I slept, it shook me to my core, and I will probably never forget it. I went on a forum that day and I spent about 2 hours walking it through with people, and they all tried to dismiss it as fake. But man, it was chilling. Too much of it made sense, and there was no evidence supporting any falseness to it, so I'm left with this story and a belief that I was being observed by a child that's been dead for almost 150 years. Kudos to New Orleans for living up to its reputation. Imagine having a little child from like
Oh,
100 years ago just sitting and watching you sleep.
that's so creepy.
I would shit my pants.
Mm. Okay, so my next one is by Claudia Insights 4 years ago. And she says, my story takes place in 2018. New Orleans during Halloween. My parents and I were there to celebrate a birthday and attend a healthcare conference to present research. We decided to stay at Hotel Montelion and located in the French Quarter because that is where my conference was taking place. Little did I know it was also known for being haunted. As a psychic medium, I was fully prepared to have many paranormal experiences, but I was not prepared for what happened to both my parents soon after we arrived. On the first night of our arrival, my parents had to stay in my room because their room was double booked. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find my father sitting up in his bed across from mine. There was a thin, androgynous 8 foot tall being touching his leg. I watched for a few minutes and my dad lay back down and the benevolent being disappeared. The next day, I asked my dad about it and he said he was visited by an alien being who told him he was healing his sciatica pain.
Hmm.
Indeed, his pain disappeared for months and months. 4 days later, my parents are now 4 days later, my parents are now staying in their room. On the last morning of our stay, my father rings me to please come to their room. I get there and see that they are both anxious and bewildered. My father then proceeds to tell me that he knows my mother was possessed by a spirit the night before, who kept insisting that she jump from the window in her room. My dad stated that around 3 a.m. the night before, my mother woke up to tell him to hold her hands to not let her go. My father thought my mother was having a stroke because her face looked faded somehow. She was there, but not, he said. His intuition told him to keep guard. My mother recounted that she felt when a young woman entered her body, but pushed past her to ask my father to hold her hands until the morning came. She said the woman kept asking her to go to the window and jump. My mother said all she could do was pray for protection. She said she focused on my dad and asked the spirit to leave her. We left New Orleans a little shaken, but okay. When we got back home, I reached out to the hotel and spoke to a manager about the incident. He informed me that he had worked there 5 years, and I was the third person he'd spoke to who had this experience. He validated that there was a story that a young woman who jumped to her death from that room after being jilted by a lover. I sure do wish they had disclosed that information prior to me booking that room. Now I know better. I asked before I booked.
Oh, same.
That's
How
crazy.
haunted is too haunted? Please tell me,
That's
am
so
I gonna get
crazy.
possessed?
Mhm.
Hell no. Hell no. Okay, so this is my last one. This one's from a year ago. So my New Orleans experience by much credit 3936. So this is an account of some events that happened to me 2 years ago in New Orleans. I haven't spoken about this to anyone. Like me, my friends and family are not believers in the paranormal. I just don't have any explanation for what happened to me. A few years ago, I took a series of jobs in hospitality as a way to travel to different parts of the US. In 2022, I took a position at a small hostel in New Orleans. The hostel is a beautiful Victorian house just on the edge of the French Quarter, and I was really excited about using it as my base to explore the city and the state of Louisiana. Like most old houses, the building had some quirks. You know, like how wood settles in old houses. Sometimes it would sound like there are footsteps upstairs.
Oh.
Guests in room 3 would always come down to the reception to check if there was a problem with the air conditioning because the room was just always cold. I remember the Yale lock on the front door would start whirring for no reason, despite the changing the batteries and the lock itself. It was a few weeks into my stay there that things began to get really strange. It started with the candlestick. It was autumn, and since the peak season was now done, we decided to deep clean the house, including the top floor, which is not open to guests. I remember reaching up to dust the top of a bookshelf when my hand hit something. There was a sudden crash that made me freak out that I'd broken something. I'd knocked something heavy sounding off the top of the bookshelf and had fallen, but luckily into an open cardboard box instead of denting the wooden floor. I looked at it, turning it around in my hand. It was covered in cobwebs and would look like rust, but I could see that underneath all that was a beautiful, ornate candlestick. I'm pretty sure I went to look for the other staff right there and wanting to show them this beautiful candlestick and to ask if they'd seen another one. I thought it would be good to put them out on display. The first person I came across was a girl I'd call Megan. I showed it to her excitedly, asking if she'd seen the other one, but she just raised her eyebrows and said it was creepy and to chuck it out. I never did find the other one, but I found a candle for it and I put it on display on the dining room table. Around this time, I started sleeping really badly. It wasn't nightmares exactly. I just never woke up feeling well rested. It was like the feeling you get right when you wake up, just after your dog dies or you got your heart broken. Like a feeling of dread sinking into your stomach, just for a second, knowing something is wrong, waiting for the memory to hit again. But it never did, and I never knew why I felt that way. It was just something that I went through every single morning. I don't remember now if it was the next morning or a few days later, but I went to put out the breakfast and the candlestick wasn't on the table anymore. I didn't think anything of it. People get drunk on Bourbon Street, come back late, and do really weird things. I found it under the table and I put it back where it was. The next day, though, it moved again, and this time I found it on the other side of the room. On this morning, I was looking for the candlestick. I didn't blame partygoers anymore and had a good idea who kept moving it. A few nights ago, I'd come up from the evening shift to the kitchen. It was dark, all the lights were off, and I've come to the dining room. I glimpsed Megan standing there looking at it. Even though I only saw her from behind, I knew it was her. She was the only girl here with long dark hair. And she said the she said the candlestick was creepy the very first time she'd seen it. I found it again, this time shoved in the bottom of the storage closet, and when I saw Megan, I confronted her, telling her to stop moving the candlestick. She said she didn't. I was holding it in my hand and felt this consuming rage flow through me. Honestly, a kind of anger way out of proportion to what was happening. It was just for a second, and I came to my senses. She was looking at me with wide eyes, and I put the candlestick back on the table. After that, I kept seeing the candlestick in the dining room, and I felt a little embarrassed about almost losing my temper with Megan. I didn't know why she lied to me about moving it, but I pride myself on being professional, and I didn't feel good about what had happened. One day, while cleaning, I randomly moved it to room 4, where I wouldn't walk past it several times a day. I didn't plan on keeping it there, but that room wasn't going to be occupied for a few days. And a little while after this, something else happened. One night I'd finished the evening shift and began studying at the front desk. It was just after 1 a.m. when I heard footsteps in the corridor behind me. I recognized the woman who came into the lobby. She was staying upstairs in one of the dormitories. Due to a missed flight, a party of 4 people who were due to stay at that dormitory had not arrived. So this lady was staying alone in what I think was our 5-bed dorm. When I saw her, her hair was messed up and she looked really tired. So I was immediately concerned. I think I asked her if everything was all right, and she asked me if I could check in on the person in the room next to her because it seemed like they'd been crying for hours. She hadn't been able to sleep because of the noise and was really worried that the person in there wasn't doing okay. So I followed her upstairs to the knock on the door where she heard the crying, taking the keys with me in case I needed to let myself into the room. Next to her was one of the dorms. It had 8 or so beds, but tonight there were only a couple of girls staying there. I stopped outside and I raised my hand to knock on the door when she stopped me. She said the crying had been from the room opposite her, room 4. Now I'd assumed she meant the dorm because that room was occupied. Room 4 wasn't. I told her this, but she seemed certain that the crying had been coming from that room. Right then, there was nothing other than silence and the creaking of an old house. I tried to reassure her that the noise she heard was probably one of the hostel's cats or another animal. But to make her mind at ease, I decided to check room 4. I opened the door and switched the light. No one was there. I gave her my reassurance and she went back to the room, but something caught my eye. The lampshade on the far side of the bed was torn and something was on the pillow. I walked around the bed and saw that on the pillow there was small shards of broken glass and on the floor was a lamp that was torn through the fabric and smashed the light bulb. Something I probably should have mentioned. Megan had returned to her home country before I took the candlestick in the room, and I had a bad feeling that it was not her moving it. I didn't see much of that woman for the next couple of days until one morning I heard the sound of suitcase wheels and quick footsteps coming from the corridor. It was the woman, and saying she said she wanted to check out. She still had 3 nights left, so I asked if there was something wrong. She shook her head, and when I looked at her face, she looked pale, dark circles under her eyes, and I tried to see what was going on, but she just shoved the keys at me and ran away. Something also happened that night that made me want to leave. I woke up to the sound of someone moving around in my room. I was still half asleep and thought I was dreaming, but I knew somehow that these noises weren't coming from inside of my mind. I heard footsteps, rustling, and then finally the feeling of something or someone sitting down on my bed. I remember the weight of it, the way that it pressed down on the mattress, and
Oh,
okay. And somehow I just knew that whatever it was wasn't human. I kept as still as I could, but my heart was beating so hard. I was sure that whatever it was would hear it. It seemed to sit there for a long time, and while I lay there, too afraid to move, my every nerve was connected to it. After a time, I felt the bed move again, and it was gone. I never heard the door open or close, and I remember lying there for a long time, covers pulled over my head. I have no explanation for what happened, and thankfully, since I left, nothing weird has happened, but sometimes I still feel the sensation of the mattress sinking with whatever was sat watching me. New Orleans is amazing, but whatever happened to me was the most terrifying experience of my life. Long story short, young girl was possessed by a candlestick.
Lord, that's crazy. There were so many Reddit stories for real that I came across.
Mhm. Right. Abby, you ready
And
to
I'm
pull
gonna
some
pull a
cards?
card. Yeah. Okay. So one card put out as soon as I started shuffling, so I just got two because I was like, can I have one more?
Mhm.
So the first one I got is passion, and the second I got is strength. This is what this one
Ooh,
looks like.
okay.
It's pretty.
And what deck are you using?
This one. It's like cemetery symbols and
Ooh, I
strength.
love okay.
So let's see what they say about it. The passion card indicates the fires within you. It can represent the undying devotion of a lover as in the tragic myth of the Greek goddess Psyche, but it can also be an analogy for other aspects of fiery determination. The message from this card is to burst into life and listen to the fire in your belly. So basically, passion, just
More
as it
passion,
says.
more energy, more passion, more
See.
energy.
In ancient Egypt, the lion was a symbol of nobility and strength. It was believed to be a protector of the pharaoh and a symbol of the divine. The Victorians loved Egyptian art and motifs, so the lion is one of the many symbols they borrowed for its powerful meaning. The strength card cause for courage, inner strength, and resilience. It can represent the ability to overcome obstacles, to stay in touch with your resolve, and to stay determined and focus on your goals. Basically, I think that's what it's saying. Be
This is
passionate in your
Aries
goals and keep
season.
pursuing.
Yeah.
Yeah, passion, strength. That's so Aries.
It's full
I
Aries
agree.
coded. Hell yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys so, so, so much for listening. Again, as always, like, comment, share, follow us.
Mhm.
We have starting April 1st, we have a new tier on Patreon for our Chthonic girlies. And it'll have extra bonus episodes, a compendium, all these beautiful, incredible things if you want to check it out.
Mhm.
You can email us with the stories at catabasiscultura@gmail.com, or you can check in on our socials with at Katabasis Cultura. And I'll talk to you guys next week. My name
Yeah.
is Kim,
And I'm Abby.
and this is
Catabasis.
Cultura. Bye, guys.
Bye.